This is a load management dialogue presented by PLMA. Here you'll discover practitioner perspectives on flexible energy load management, demand response, and distributed energy resources. Today's session highlights SEPA's recent practitioners' perspective study, which was supported by the U.S. Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Our special guests today are Kate Strickland from SEPA and Liz Stewart from LBNL. Kate's going to review the study results with us and answer questions. And at the conclusion of Kate's deck, Liz is going to give a brief update of where LBNL is on DOE's Connected Communities projects. As we proceed with today's conversation, please type any questions you have to our presenters in the Q&A in the chat function at the top of your team's screen. We'll do our best to answer all these questions when we conclude with the slides. And with no further ado, I hand the floor over to Kate.
Thank you so much, Rich, and all PLMA members. Really excited for this opportunity to share a recent report and key findings with you. A quick introduction. My name is Kate Strickland. I am a manager of regulatory and business innovation at the Smart Electric Power Alliance, otherwise known as SEPA. Next slide, please. For those who aren't familiar, a quick overview of SEPA. SEPA is a nonprofit membership organization. Our members include utilities, IOUs, municipals, and electric cooperatives. Our members also include technology solution providers, regulators and policymakers, and other stakeholders. SEPA envisions a carbon-free energy system that is safe, affordable, reliable, resilient, and equitable. And our mission is to accelerate the transformation to a carbon-free electricity sector through actionable solutions. Our work focuses on research, education, facilitation, and creation. And our topics focus on regulatory and business innovation, electrification, including transportation and buildings, and grid integration. Next slide, please. As Rich mentioned, today I am going to present key findings from a recent report on unlocking a grid interactive efficient buildings, or GEBs, future. Next slide, please. So to begin, I just wanted to provide an overview of our evolving grid interactive efficient buildings, or GEBs, landscape. As many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, the U.S. Department of Energy currently has a goal to triple energy efficiency and demand flexibility in residential and commercial buildings by 2030, based on a 2020 baseline. And you can see here on the slide, just to level set for this discussion and conversation, the GEBs definition coming out of DOE's Building Technologies Office. And so grid interactive efficient buildings, or GEBs, are energy efficient buildings with smart technologies, really characterized, of course, by the active use of DERs to co-optimize energy use for grid services, customer needs and preferences, and cost reductions in an integrated way. And so four key elements or characteristics of GEBs are listed here in terms of efficient, connected, smart, and of course, flexible. Next slide, please. So before I dive into the report key findings, wanted to orient in terms of the report and case studies. As Rich mentioned, the report Accelerating Coordinated Utility Programs for Grid Interactive Efficient Buildings, Practitioner Perspectives, was supported both by the U.S. Department of Energy as well as Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And this study really examined the current state of coordinated energy efficiency, demand flexibility, and demand response utility programs that support grid interactive efficient buildings. So really diving into the current transition that's underway from more traditional energy efficiency and demand response programs into coordinated utility program offerings that then support grid interactive efficient buildings. And the report and study specifically focused on practitioner perspectives. So that includes utilities, again, investor-owned utilities, municipals, electric co-ops, as well as regulator and policymakers, and technology solution providers. So really a diverse set of practitioner perspectives, really working to understand the challenges to, as well as the potential solution strategies currently at play for our building energy program transition. And so the study identified some of the key challenges of deploying effective coordinated EE, DF, and DR utility programs, and then also cataloged current solution strategies to those challenges in order to really move forward with accelerated coordinated utility programs and unlocking that grid interactive efficient buildings future that we're all collectively working towards. I'd also note that in addition to the report, the report also includes 8 case studies, which I'll mention at various points today, but an opportunity to dive deeper into some of these issues. Next slide, please. So before I dive into the key challenges, wanted to provide a quick overview on project scope and project framing. So as I mentioned, to examine both the current and future evolution of utility programs that facilitate and support grid interactive efficient buildings. As you can see here in figure 1, our project scope really focused on the areas in which utility coordinated energy efficiency, demand flexibility, and demand response programs intersected with grid interactive efficient buildings. And the project scope included a focus on residential and commercial utility programs that, as you can see here, encourage customer adoption of end-use building technologies in addition to diverse DERs, and really their subsequent use to provide some form of grid services. I would also note that the study included, a literature review, focus groups, and one-on-one interviews to really identify the key findings. Next slide, please. And a quick overview here of project framing in terms of some of the different types of coordinated programs that the study and study participants identified, as well as an overview of current state. So what you see here on the right in table 2 are the 3 program types that study participants identified. And that includes type 1, energy and demand flexibility programs that are really focused on promoting customer end use technology adoption. The next program type is type 2, where we have integrated energy efficiency, demand flexibility, and demand response programs that promote customer end use adoption with that potential to provide grid services. And then moving into type 3 programs, where you're really both promoting customer end use adoption that's linked to dispatchable grid services. And you can see here in this table, we also really outlined how these programs were supporting various energy efficiency and demand flexibility approaches, a DR approach, and then of course also understanding how these coordinated programs are promoting grid interactive efficient buildings. And really you see here that type 1 programs are promoting GEBs by increasing the efficiency and adoption of energy efficiency and demand flexibility technologies in buildings. That's core to all 3 program types. And then type 2 and type 3 really move into promoting GEBs by that opportunity to co-optimize across grid services, customer preferences, and cost. And a few additional comments on current program state. Certainly, results from the study and comments by study participants, fully optimized and coordinated utility programs are still nascent. And that there is really a current continuum of program activity occurring. That can be, investigation of program offerings. That can be, of course, piloting, and then, moving into full program deployment. The majority of study participants are, currently operating more traditional energy efficiency and demand response programs, with a few, moving into providing demand flexibility offerings. And much of this current program integration and that early success is really primarily due to both supportive regulatory environments, which we'll discuss more shortly, in addition to combined with internal supportive drivers. And finally, again, as I mentioned, type 1 programs where we're really promoting, customer end use technology adoption, is the majority of action, though study participants, of course, are looking to transition into that opportunity to provide potential or dispatchable grid services. My final note on this front would be, based on study participants' remarks, regulatory and policy study participants, were also very, supportive and view demand flexibility, as key to meeting our various carbon reduction targets and really achieving the clean energy transition. But as we'll see, there are a number of, key challenges that are currently acting as barriers to this transition. Next slide, please. Very quickly, just to sort of bring this down to earth a little bit, you're seeing here in figure 3, on the left-hand side, the program, typology coming from the study and report. And then on the right-hand side of the table, utility programs that align with those types. I would note, of course, that this graph, as well as the typologies, really are a continuum. We, of course, heard from study participants about, hybrid programs. So just again, want to emphasize here the continuum aspect of these programs. Next slide, please. So to dive into some of the key findings from the study and report, as I mentioned, the study really focused on identifying the challenges to, as well as potential solution strategies to accelerate coordinated utility programs that support grid interactive efficient buildings. And the study and report organize and categorize the challenges into 5 key categories, as you see here. I'm going to do an overview of the first 4. However, we'll leave you all to visit the report and download for a deeper dive on technical implementation, which of course is key, but only have so much time today. Next slide, please. So first, to begin with, wanted to highlight some of the key challenges under the organizational and structural silos category as we think about that transition from current traditional energy efficiency and demand response programs into coordinated EEDR and DF programs. Key findings in terms of organizational and structural silos certainly include that both utility and regulatory organizational silos are limiting the ability to develop and deploy coordinated utility programs and really maximize grid services. I'm going to focus here on utility internal silos. Just want to note that there is a section and a case study on regulatory silos as well that I encourage everyone to check out. So first here, when we think about utility internal silos, challenge elements include separate program teams, goals, a lack of internal, value proposition for coordinated programs, and also, elements of challenges around IT and billing. And the potential solution strategies that came from the study and study participants specifically around how to address utility internal silos certainly include the opportunity to house EE, DF, and DR teams under one umbrella. Study participants, including National Grid and Eversource, have taken this organizational approach. And then, of course, the opportunity and need to really coordinate internally with other departments and teams early on in the development process for coordinated program offerings. I would also note that although this key challenge is more focused on an internal perspective, technology solution providers within the study also emphasize the challenge of utility internal silos impacting their ability to offer integrated incentives, as well as also design a comprehensive customer journey and experience for coordinated utility programs. Additionally, what I wanted to highlight in this category were the challenges of separate program administrators. A number of our study participants were from states with separate energy efficiency program administrators, such as Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Wisconsin. And that when we're thinking about coordinated programs, there are some opportunities around solution strategies to overcome this particular barrier. And that includes solution strategies around the opportunity to organize coordination meetings between various entities. You're seeing that to great success, for instance, in Vermont with Green Mountain Power and Efficiency Vermont. Also seeing that successful coordination occurring in Hawaii between HECO, Hawaii Energy, as well as the PUC. And additional other strategies included the opportunity to establish data sharing platforms. This was more a solution strategy that is nascent as opposed to currently implemented. And then really ensuring that existing policies prioritize program integration in addition to identifying success metrics around program integration, which can be seen again in the Hawaii example. And then finally here, I'd highlight the challenge of differing objectives between program partners. As we think about coordinated utility program offerings, of course, there's going to be a diversity of entities involved, from utilities to vendors and contractors to solution providers to evaluators. And so really highlighting the need for increased proactive planning and discussion, both in terms of coordinated program business models, contract structures, and then opportunities to clarify customer relationship ownership as we think about coordinated utility program offerings. Next slide, please. I'm going to move us on to the next challenge category of existing regulatory frameworks. I would note that both of these challenges around the lack of regulatory innovation frameworks and the lack of regulatory collaboration frameworks both have specific case studies within the report, which I encourage folks to check out. And as we think about coordinated utility EE, DF, and DR programs, regulatory innovation and collaboration frameworks really have an opportunity to meaningfully advance coordinated utility programs. But there are certainly, current challenges around this. And some of the potential solution strategies currently at play to address regulatory innovation is the opportunity for more acceptance of, bounded pilot risk and the need for pilot flexibility. Study participants also identified increased opportunities for discussion and feedback from regulators during pilot and program planning. That was specifically highlighted by Consumers Energy in the development of their smart thermostat program. Coming from Vermont and Green Mountain Power, we see the opportunities and advantages of a more flexible regulatory structure that allows for pilot and program evolution. And then a number of regulators also highlighted the opportunity to provide financial support for highlighting pilot successes and really, sharing lessons learned across jurisdictions. And as we think about regulatory collaboration frameworks, again, looking to some examples both in Vermont and Hawaii, but really focused on opportunities for regulatory engagement during program development. Again, the importance of coordination across all entities, the opportunity to increase data access and process transparency for all stakeholders, as well as, again, sharing lessons learned across jurisdictions. Next slide, please. The next challenge category that I wanted to briefly highlight was utility business models and valuation. Again, as we think about coordinated energy efficiency, demand flexibility, and demand response programs that support GEBs, there are current key challenges around utility business model constraints and potential solution strategies that study participants identified here. Not so surprisingly, was the opportunity to consider implementation of PBR to align or better align a utility's financial incentives with that opportunity to deliver coordinated utility programs. And then additionally, sort of adjacent, as we think about utility business model, was also the potential solution strategy to incorporate demand flexibility requirements into building codes and appliance standards in order to increase grid interactive efficient buildings related technologies that are deployed in the market. And we're seeing that currently in California and the Energy Commission. And then another key element to highlight here is the challenge around limited demand flexibility values, specifically in jurisdictions without wholesale markets. Study participants, both utilities, regulators, and policymakers, identified this as a barrier and really, considered the opportunity and the potential solution strategy around, leveraging integrated resource planning to include energy efficiency, demand flexibility, and demand response as procurable resources to better support and accelerate coordinated utility program offerings. Next slide, please. Finally, the last challenge category I will dive into here, but by no means the least, is program design and customers. And the first Two challenges I'll highlight include cost effectiveness and evolving program metrics. Specifically around cost effectiveness, study participants really identified the challenge of quantification and evaluation of cost effectiveness for coordinated EED, F, and DR programs that's currently hindering both program development and deployment. Potential solution strategies coming from study participants included supporting AMI deployment and data analysis, both to better understand as well as measure coordinated program value and cost effectiveness. The opportunity to collaborate regionally, especially in areas without regional wholesale markets, to really help utilities and participants assess value. The opportunity to conduct pilots for coordinated utility program offerings, which in some cases, depending on regulatory structures, can help assess cost effectiveness. And then also the opportunity to review existing cost effectiveness requirements for potential enhancements and alignment with national best practices. And then the additional key challenge here is really around evolving program metrics, and specifically came up in the context of utilities and state level carbon reduction goals and targets, and the need to have a more comprehensive program metric approach in order to align with those organizational as well as state level requirements. And potential solution strategies in this area focus both on collaborative discussions, both with internal and external stakeholders, really clear direction from regulators and internal leadership on program objectives, and also a thoughtful selection of new metrics based on data availability, baseline data, and of course, setting performance goals. And I would note that there is a case study in the report specifically on both of these topics that I would encourage everyone to dive into. Next slide. And finally, last two challenges to highlight within program design and customers around customer recruitment and retention as we think about coordinated utility program offerings, as well as advancing equitable participation. And so study participants really identified the additional consideration, effort, and challenges around both customer recruitment and retention when you think about coordinated utility program offerings. And like traditional energy efficiency and demand response programs, coordinated utility programs are facing sort of steeper barriers to both engagement and recruitment. And potential solution strategies that were highlighted include really customizing as well as communicating the primary value proposition for various customer segments and classes, as well as the opportunity to consider offering both upfront incentives in terms of rebates to encourage program recruitment, as well as consider offering ongoing incentives, for instance, rate discounts to encourage program retention. And then finally, a key priority for study participants as a whole was ensuring and advancing equitable participation in coordinated utility program offerings. And study participants really identified a number of solution strategies to advance equitable participation, including strategies such as recruiting an income diverse customer participant pool for pilots to really determine strategies that support increased disadvantaged community or low to moderate income customer participation in coordinated utility program offerings, the opportunity to partner with trusted local community-based organizations, the opportunity to work with rental housing market stakeholders to identify and assist disadvantaged communities and low moderate income customers. And then the final solution strategy was the opportunity, to consider implementing a form of PBR that incentivizes utilities to prioritize serving LMI customers, which we're seeing some start of in some states. Next slide, please. And finally, I wanted to leave us all with some key takeaways as we think about opportunities to scale programs and some of the strategies, recognizing that many utilities and other industry stakeholders are at the beginning phase of this work and this transition into coordinated utility programs. And the opportunity to really envision and design, pilots with the intent of transitioning to a full program. So as you heard me mention previously, study participants really highlighted, the opportunity to actively seek regulatory feedback and discussion during a piloting process. The opportunity to publicly highlight pilot successes, and then really thinking about the various strategies to structure pilots, again, with that intent to transition to a full program, whether that's leveraging the pilot to help quantify cost effectiveness parameters, to structure pilot offerings to be as similar as possible to what might be offered in a full program, to really ensure diverse pilot participation, and to work with and collaborate with the teams who would eventually be responsible for full program implementation. And with that, I'll move to the next slide. As I mentioned previously, in addition to the report key findings, there are 8 case studies on many of these specific challenges that dive deeper into current solution strategies and organizational responses to some of these challenges. Next slide, please. And finally, I recognize we've covered a lot here. I am always happy to discuss one-on-one, so please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we have time shortly for audience Q&A, but welcome any follow-up as well. And with that, thank you for the opportunity to share key findings from our report. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Liz Stewart from Lawrence Berkeley to offer an update on DOE's Connected Communities programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to let you know, hopefully many of you already know about DOE's Connected Communities project or initiative, but for those who don't, the Department of Energy, the building technology, it's actually a collaboration between several offices at the DOE, launched a cohort of 10 community level projects in 2022. They all have significant funding, but they're finding matching funding as well. And these are large demonstration projects that include a range of distributed energy resources, coordinated controls, and other smart technologies, coordinating across buildings, community-wide. And also the teams are cross-sectional. They each have a large team that include private organizations like utilities and ESCOs and private home builders, and new home builders, as well as governments and research organizations. So they're pretty large projects where DOE is very excited about what they're each going to demonstrate. Various aspects basically of implementing grid efficient buildings and coordinated controls for peak load management, integrating DERs, etc. So I just want to give you a quick rundown. Oops, we lost the slide. I still need to see that slide. Thank you. These are the 10 projects. I won't read them, but just kind of, there's a lot of emphasis in the residential projects. That they involve both residential and commercial in different ways. Some of them are all residential, some are a mix. And a lot of focus on low and moderate income in the residential sections, a lot of focus on, PV and battery and even EV charging. And then there are some all new home projects that are kind of from the ground up going to be a part of this program. There's at least one campus, Ohio State University. So we have really a diverse set of projects. They're just getting off the ground. Right now they're working on things like occupant surveys and getting various agreements in place, working with their local governments, things like that, to make sure that what they have planned can be executed. These are 5-year programs. I think we'll start seeing results, though, at least some kind of early, implementation results within a year or so. So I do have links for where you can learn more about these and other kinds of resources. Let's go to the next slide, please. So coming up, there is actually a public peer review that DOE is doing. This is the DOE Building Technologies Office, and they are featuring a couple of presentations by the Connected Communities folks. These are open to the public, so if you want some information about this, you can go to this link. On April 24th, there'll be a poster session for the Connected Communities projects. And then on April 25th, there's going to be some informational talks, and I think probably a chance to do some Q&A. So if you're interested at all, you can look at that link. And then if you want to learn just more and also stay in touch and learn what's happening with the Connected Communities projects, you can please visit the website, connectedcommunities.lbl.gov. A little form with the newsletter sign up will pop up. So if you want to get, I think we're going to send newsletters out probably no more than 4 times a year. So you will not get barraged by emails. But you could keep up to date. And also the website is chock full of all kinds of information that would be useful to folks in this space. There are case studies galore and other kinds of resources. So we really recommend that you just visit the site, poke around. It's got descriptions of the 10 Connected Communities projects, as well as a lot of other information, reports, things from various organizations, such as I think we might have SEPA's stuff up there, and NASIO, that's the National Association of State Energy Officials, a lot of other research organizations on all kinds of stuff having to do with load management and grid integrated efficient buildings. I believe that is all I have to say on this for now, but do visit that website.
So this brings us to time for Q&A. So again, those of you in attendance, please submit questions via the chat and let us know if you've got something that you think is longer or needs a little explanation. We can unmute you if you raise your hand using that part of the Teams application. But in the meantime, while somebody is starting to submit questions, hopefully, Kate, I know in the pre-submitted questions that we got it for people when they registered, we had somebody ask about whether there was anything in your GEB study that was looking specifically at multifamily homes.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. And thank you to whomever submitted that. Certainly recognize that is a key component here. And, Liz sharing some of the connected communities pilots and programs, which are focused on multi-unit family dwellings, is a great opportunity to learn more. The report and study didn't specifically focus on that. However, SEPA in some other complementary work this year will be working on a research report and study focused on multi-unit family dwellings. So more to come on that front, but would be happy to connect with whoever answered that question in terms of particular research areas or topics that you're specifically focused on, given that we currently do have a project in flight and development, so would welcome learning more.
Thanks for that. So while we're there, kind of thinking about what's coming next, Kate, maybe that is a reasonable topic. What else is coming next, in this GEB space on SEPA's radar screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I, for one, am certainly, eagerly awaiting what will be a fantastic set of, learnings and information coming out of DOE's Connected Communities pilots. It is such a diverse set of pilot approaches. And then I would note SEPA is currently engaged with WPPI Energy, a joint action agency in the upper Midwest. And we are working with them via funding through APPA's DEED grant on a guidebook for public power and small to mid-sized, more rural utilities to develop GEB programs. So that will be forthcoming in Q1 2024. But certainly really looking forward to getting that out, recognizing the diversity of utilities within this space, and offering some more targeted best practices in regards to smaller municipal utilities and the opportunity to move forward with coordinated utility programs that support grid interactive efficient buildings.
Thank you.
And Liz, you additionally would welcome any of your thoughts here as well.
Yep. Oh,
it took me a second to unmute there. Sorry. No, I think you covered it really well. Just I we'll see how the projects unfold and see what solutions they're driving out. If you want more information about the projects that are involved in multifamily, I would suggest that you go to the Connected Communities website. And if you want to contact us, I mean, you could email me if you sort of want more information about any particular project, Connected Communities project that you might be interested in connecting with, or et cetera. So feel free to reach out there.
Okay. And Liz also dropped in the chat, letting people know that that the DOE Business Technology Office peer review session is actually being held in Arlington, Virginia, in Crystal City, if anyone wants to attend in person. Well, I don't have other questions that have been submitted at this point in time. No one's raised their hand that I see. So Kate, the curveball I will throw you here then is I know that you teased earlier that there was things around, technical applications and solutions, things that you saw that you kind of guided us towards the report for, because there wasn't, really time in the presentation. Is there anything there that you might want to highlight for people as one thing that they ought to go looking for, or something that maybe to spur somebody to make sure that they go look it up at the report?
Yeah, absolutely. A high level overview of some of the key technical implementation challenges included, of course, standards, challenges around interoperability, as well as cybersecurity concerns. So recognize that, all three of those challenge categories are, whole subjects unto themselves, but certainly are intersecting here as we think about the opportunity to accelerate coordinated utility EE, DF, and DR programs, as well as grid interactive efficient buildings. I believe, some of the DOE connected communities pilots are will be, grappling with some of these same technical implementation challenges themselves. So again, looking towards some of the key learnings there that are going to come out thanks to those diverse pilots.
And thank you for that. So, Kate and Liz, I want to just take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time to share, what's going on in these important areas with our audience today. I think a highly interesting topic and engaging for us, and really appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slide deck quick. For those of you who would like to rewatch this discussion, there's a couple ways you can do it. One is through our Load Management Dialogue podcasts, which are available wherever you get your podcasts. History says that's heavily Apple and Spotify, but they certainly aren't the only ways. In addition, another way is on PLMA's brand new YouTube channel. So Kate and Liz are now going to be YouTube sensations, through PLMA's YouTube channel. Go looking for it on YouTube, PLMA, Peak Load Management Alliance. It should come up pretty quickly for you. And we expect to blow past the 8 subscribers we have now. So you guys really are on the cutting edge. In addition to that, folks, we're getting to be just about a month away from our upcoming conference in Memphis, our spring conference, the 47th since PLMA was founded. And there's only about a week left on the room block guarantee for the favored pricing and all that kind of stuff. So please go out to peakload.org/calendar. It's getting to be time to register for you and your colleagues, and we look forward to seeing you in Memphis in May. In addition, we announced just recently that we're going to hold an EV symposium on managed charging. That's going to be held this summer, August 10th and 11th. I'm sorry, 9th and 10th. I get it now. August 9th and 10th in Detroit. And right now our call for abstracts is still open. It's going to be open until next Wednesday. So if you're in the managed charging space, solving problems or looking at problems, exploring problems, please, we'd be interested in having you there and potentially talking. We've actually split that agenda up into 2 phases. On the afternoon of August 9th, we're talking about the recent learnings in managed charging, what people have done and what they've learned or what they haven't learned. And then on day 2 in the morning of August 10th, we're talking about tomorrow's problems and challenges, right? The things that aren't yet solved and need to be figured out to really achieve all it needs to be in this electrification and transportation space. So again, if you got something interesting, be looking at, we're looking for abstracts as we fill out an agenda, and we'll open up for registrations as soon as we get back from Memphis around the middle of May. In addition, a week from today, we're having another load management dialogue. This one's on heat pump water heaters and some things going on in Hawaii. Join us for that conversation with Shifted Energy and Hawaiian Electric. In addition, the next day, Women in Demand Management Interest Group, Affinity Group, is going to meet and do a virtual meetup as something to do as kind of preparation before they get together in Memphis. So please join us for that conversation as well. That's next Friday, the 14th, between 12:30 and 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And really quick, also the following week on the 20th, we have a Hot Topics with our Electric Transportation Interest Group, talking with the folks at NREL about some things that they're enabling in the electric transportation space. So also, be looking for that. Again, peakload.org/calendar is the place to go. One more time, thank you to Liz and Kate for your time and effort in today's presentation and conversation is greatly appreciated. And you've been listening to a load management dialogue presented by PLMA. To learn about upcoming dialogues and for an archive of past recordings, visit peakload.org or your favorite podcast platform. This concludes this edition. Thank you.